Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Biohacking Beauty Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm very, very happy to have you here with me today. My name is Amitay. I am the co-founder and CEO of Young Goose, the biohacking skincare company, and the host of this podcast. And actually today, this is going to be a solo episode, which we're going to be talking about red light again in a different angle, if you would. And we're going to talk about ways to improve red light therapy and what red light therapy improves in other modalities, whether in general health or beauty. And that's why you can see the fact that there is a red light shining on me now to kind of get us into this theme, if anyone's watching. And what we're going to be taking a deep dive into today, as I said, is how red light therapy really functions, what it does to our cells, to our skin cells and our cells as a whole, kind of looking at different health challenges that our skin is faced with in our modern day lives, and how red light therapy can help, and how we can help red light therapy do that. When I say red light therapy, it's of course red and near infrared light, which is called also photobiomodulation. You will learn how red light therapy really functions so you can understand how to use it better. You'll learn exactly what times or when red light therapy would be the most effective when you want to tackle specific issues. And as I said, you'll learn how to use different modalities to improve the effects of red light therapy. Before we dive into today's episode, it would really mean the world to me and to us here at Young Goose and the Biohacking Beauty Podcast if you took a second out of your day and subscribe to this podcast. Not only does this ensure you will never miss on an episode, but also greatly helps the growth of this podcast. So I ask you to do that. Last but not least, I'm reminding you that this podcast is brought to you by Young Goose, the biohacking skincare brand that I co-founded. And now, without further ado, let's start today's episode. So, what is red light therapy, or what is photobiomodulation? First of all, basically it is using wavelengths which are either in the visible spectrum of light in which is red, or what we call near infrared, which are, if we want the actual parameters, it's anywhere between 700 nanometers to 1100 nanometers. These are the wavelengths that are normally classified between red to near infrared. Below that, we have orange or yellow or other types of visible light. And above that is mid and far infrared. Mid is kind of a combination between both. We can say 900 to 1300 is mid. And then we have far infrared, which is what is used in for example, in infrared saunas. But red and near infrared as a therapy actually was discovered on accident because in the 60s there was a study that's been done on rats that looked actually at blue light or blue lasers and different things that they are doing, but they needed actually a segment. They needed a control group to compare and contrast, and in that control group, red laser was used. And what they noticed is that there were actual benefits on wound healing and fur growth from that red laser. So that's actually how interest in this modality started. And the reason it is called photobiomodulation, it's because photo means light, bio means our biology, and modulation means the modulation of it, or the adjustment of it. So the way that we can adjust our biology with light. One thing I would say before we get into the nitty-gritty of photobiomodulation, PBM in short, or red light therapy, is that there is another treatment that dermatologists do that has a similar name, and I just want to emphasize the difference. There is a treatment called photodynamic therapy, and photodynamic therapy is a different treatment that actually uses blue and UV light, which basically is designed for acne or for skin resurfacing. So that's a different treatment, which we're not going to get into now. But what happens really with red light therapy is pretty interesting, because when you can imagine our cells, every cell in our body, if it's sick, old, injured, what it does, instead of just creating oxygen or just using oxygen in order to create energy, this cell is going to create nitric oxide as a byproduct of that energy production. And what happens is that this nitric oxide is going to be uptaken by the mitochondria in that cell instead of oxygen. And this nitric oxide is going to actually compete with oxygen. And by competing with oxygen, it will displace some of the oxygen and create free radicals or oxidative stress. This oxidative stress is going to lead to more cellular damage, dysfunction, and obviously death. So this is kind of a snowball where cells are basically going to accumulate inflammation, are going to accumulate things that prevent them from functioning optimally. And that vicious cycle, if you would, just continues on and on and on. So the more we accumulate those dysfunctioning cells, the more inflammation we create, the more free radicals we create, the more they affect other cells, and we have a snowball effect. That's where red light therapy comes into the picture, because red light therapy or near infrared, these wavelengths don't interact very well with water. They don't get absorbed in water. What they do get absorbed in is one enzyme in the mitochondria that is in charge of that oxygen utilization. So when they get absorbed in that enzyme, they break the bond between that enzyme, which is, by the way, called CCO, and the nitric oxide, and they are basically having the mitochondria release that nitric oxide, so the mitochondria can then use oxygen in a more efficient way. Another thing that it does, it releases that reactive oxygen species or oxidative stress or free radicals that have been created, because it is locally not a large amount of free radicals. There is actually an interesting positive result that happens through that, which we're going to touch on in a second. But basically, that described the first aspect of why red light therapy is good for us, because it makes us create more energy, or it helps us create more energy in the form of ATP, which our cells need. One of the hallmark, or one of the things that point to an older functioning body, is the cost of ATP production gets higher and higher and higher. So by lowering the cost of ATP production or helping our cells create ATP, we're essentially having the skin behave like a younger skin, or our body behave like a younger body if we're talking about a different organ. So that's number one. We create ATP more easily, more efficiently, and our cells have now more energy to perform whatever they need to perform. The other thing that happened that's interesting is that this nitric oxide, when we release it from the mitochondria, and some of you probably have heard about nitric oxide before, this nitric oxide is basically a vasodilator outside of our mitochondria, which means that it helps our body get blood into the area where nitric oxide is present, so we get more blood into the tissues where red light therapy is being utilized on. So again, the red light therapy has our mitochondria release all the nitric oxide that's been accumulated, and that release of nitric oxide brings more blood to that area. With blood comes more oxygen, nutrients, etc. So that helps cellular function and youthful state as well. But last and not least is that release of oxidative stress. So oxidative stress, free radicals as a whole are bad for us. But because it's such, when we look at the amount that's being released at that time, it's a relatively small amount, actually causing a positive result. You can imagine, and that's, by the way, is called hormesis, which we spoke about in this podcast before. So you can imagine working out. You can work too little, nothing's going to happen. You can work too much, you're going to sustain an injury. But within those parameters, there is a sweet spot where you are going to actually stress the body, and the body is going to react positively too. And to some extent, these free radicals are exactly in that sweet spot when we release them from the mitochondria. And what they do is they kind of mimic an injury without causing an injury, or they're stressing the body just enough for the body to pay attention to that part of our body and induce repair. So that's like a three-headed positive monster that red light therapy or photobiomodulation kind of induces. First, more ATP, more cellular energy. Second, more blood with nutrients and oxygen that is coming there. Thirdly, stimulation for repair. That's great, but unfortunately, it's not a complete process, which means that in a short amount of time, our body, because it's not used to being stimulated in that fashion, will kind of put an end to that process from happening. Because as we said in previous podcasts, our body has designed to really limit the amount of energy it's expending, in air quotes, for no apparent reason. We are designed, or the evolution has made sure that we always reserve energy for some catastrophe that can happen. Maybe we're going to have to, go without food for an extended period of time. Maybe we're going to have to escape a saber-toothed tiger, whatever that is. So our body doesn't like to invest all its energy in repair. So after a very short amount of time, and if you think about it, red light therapy really, you can enjoy the benefits of it anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. That's a very short amount of time as far as stimulation goes, or as far as what our body allows stimulation to happen. So our body, as we said, is designed to cut this stimulation short very, very quickly. So what we did here really is look at the major accepted effects of red light therapy, photobiomodulation on the skin and on our body, and the way that it helps us regenerate. But there is a little known process that is also happening that we at Young Goose, we find very, very interesting, especially for skin rejuvenation, and that science is looking at a little bit less, which is increasing the efficiency of interfacial water channels or structures, which is a really big topic in general. Structured water channels in the skin, interfacial water channels. But suffice to say that these are structures that are designed to be kind of to have two functions depending on how other tissues relate to them. The first one is to allow basically smooth movement or slippery smooth movement. And that depends on the relation of that specific structure and water. If the relation is a little bit different, the same interfacial water channel is going to make that tissue sticky, okay? That actually happens on the surface of our skin. Where is the problem with that? The problem, it's actually a two-pronged problem. The first problem is that elastin fibers, as we grow older, and as their function is being impaired, their characteristics become such that instead of utilizing those interfacial water channels as a potentiator for slipperiness and smooth gliding, etc., they actually adopt the other type of effect that these structures have, which they become a little bit like glue-like and sticky. That's number one. The second thing that happens is that when we get more mature, the same thing happens on the surface of our skin, and that actually has our skin have more affinity to pollution, to different stressors from the environment that now can stick to our skin more. It doesn't allow our skin to shed itself as easily, and also that would actually result in larger pores as well because of that. So we are actually, again, we're having elastin fibers that, exactly like their names, they are allowing our skin to be elastic, and for that we need smooth movement. They become less smooth, but also the surface of our skin now accumulates pollutants, irritants, etc. more easily. That is where red light therapy comes into the picture. Red light therapy can help those water structures. It can dial them back to a more functional state, and it can dial our tissue, elastin, and the surface of our skin into a state that can utilize these water structures in a better way. And that is why it can also help with, for example, with damages from pollution and with skin elasticity. So not only that it helps the skin like repair itself in a way where we've discussed it in other episodes of this podcast, in a more physical way. Again, more energy, more nutrients, more blood, more stimulation for repair. All of that is great, but it also literally changes the structure of the complexes that then are being expressed as what we call youthful state of the skin. And here at Young Goose, and that kind of brings us into how we can improve that function of red light therapy. Because what we were looking to do at Young Goose, we were looking to improve the effects of red light therapy and to help red light therapy create those changes in the skin. So what we did is we looked at a very beautiful series of research that were published in Germany in the late 2000s, and we saw that there is a specific antioxidant that they used to offset the reference of the body as to how much oxidative stress is being expelled from the mitochondria. Basically, we eliminated the oxidative stress or the free radicals after they've been released from the mitochondria. And if you remember, our body or our cells stop responding to red light therapy because of that expulsion of free radicals. So our cells kind of know how much free radicals have been expelled from the mitochondria, expelled from the mitochondria, and they stop responding to red light therapy because of that. By eliminating them, we can extend the effects of red light therapy. We normally say twofold, but some of those research point to 10x quicker results. So bear that in mind. The other thing, and that antioxidant, by the way, is called EGCG. The problem with that in general, because we're not the only ones who integrate EGCG in our formulations, but normally because it's such an effective eliminator of oxidative stress, it also reacts very quickly to air. It basically oxidizes very fast. It interacts with the oxygen in the air, and we're basically getting a formula that is not very effective. So our formula, what is special about it is that we can maintain EGCG at around 98% efficacy. So that is why we're proud of that aspect of it. But we didn't stop there. As you remember, we are looking at improving the function of those interfacial water channels and skin barrier and how it interacts with the environment in order to improve other aspects of red light therapy as well. So the first thing that we did is that we have a special type of hyaluronic acid there that allows those interfacial water channels to hold on to a little bit more moisture, but also improves, as we said, that quality of them that allows our body to use them well. And the last thing that we have there is vitamin E, also in a very stable form, because that is part of what determines the efficacy of our skin barrier. And what we want to do is to support the effects of red light therapy with proper skin barrier. And the reason is because if we are trying to have the skin again, get rid of a lot of those pollutants, we need to provide it with the building blocks that the skin normally uses in order to get rid of those pollutants, and that is in the form of vitamin E. So we basically, what we did here is we try to kind of back engineer how red light therapy works and make sure that we create a product that improves that effect dramatically. And that is the thinking that went into that product. The last point I'm going to touch on here is how do we, if let's say we have a red light therapy panel, let's say we have some kind of red light therapy device that we use. And when we say red light therapy, red, near infrared, photobiomodulation, we do not mean infrared saunas. Okay, actually, I'm going to touch on it a little bit later. But now we're talking about wavelengths that are between, pardon me, I said before 700, but they are between 600 and 1100 nanometers in wavelength. And the two most effective wavelengths normally, or the ones that were researched the most, are 630 to 650, which is red in the red spectrum, visible, and 810 to 850 nanometers, which is near infrared, it's invisible. So these two families normally are the ones that are existing in red light therapy panels. So if you see a red light therapy panel, you'll see that some of the lights there, even if you turn it on, are visible, some are invisible. These are the two families that are normally being utilized in red light therapy. And what we can do in order to use it most effectively is really to relate to other things that we are doing. What do we mean by that? We can use red light therapy if we want to help our skin deal with sun damage, for example. We can use red light therapy before and therefore increase our skin's ability to relate to sun damage in real time, which means that our skin is going to accumulate less of the damage that the sun will express on our skin. The other thing that we can do is use red light therapy after sun exposure, the day after, this 2 days after, in order to decrease the physical damage, such as obviously blisters and DNA damage that have been caused by that sun exposure. In other cases, using red light therapy before wouldn't be as effective as using it after. As an example, exercise. If we want to improve exercise, using red light therapy before is not going to do much, because when we exercise, we actually want to damage the muscle and then help the muscle to recover. So using it before will not improve that aspect. We want to use it after in order to help the muscle recover. Optimally, we want to use red light therapy around 3 times a week or every other day. Again, 5 to 10, 15 minutes. And the closer we're going to have the red light therapy to our body, the deeper the wavelengths would penetrate. So if we want it for our skin, we want to take it a little bit further back. So if we have a conventional red light therapy panel, it would be around 18, 24 inches away from us. But if we want it for other gut health, internal organs in general, muscles, etc., that would be closer. That would be around 6 inches from our body. Another thing to consider, remember that we said that our body has a kind of a ticking clock, in that once it realizes it's creating a lot of nitric oxide release, a lot of oxidative stress release, and a lot of ATP, it's going to lower the response to red light therapy. Having said that, the larger area we're exposing our body to red light therapy, the less results we're going to get per area. It means if I want to use red light therapy for my skin in my face, I would be getting less results by exposing my entire body to a red light therapy panel that, runs the length of my body, rather than exposing only my face. That's going to be one thing we need to pay attention to. The other one would be the strength of the red light therapy panel or device. That is why most red light therapy masks are going to be less effective or not effective, because they don't have the initial amount or the minimum threshold of energy that they relate to the skin, so they don't stimulate the skin enough. Overdosing or red light therapy is going to be very difficult as far as power, but as far as time, we are going to get a point of diminishing returns after 20 to 30 minutes. So bear that in mind. It's not like you can do it, multiple times a day, every day, and continue getting more and more results. There is a very specific limit that is well researched. It's very difficult to argue with that limit. Having said that, what is the limit of power? So normally we're looking at anywhere from like 50 milliwatts per centimeter squared all the way to 500 as the range of stimulation that we want. Again, what does it mean? It means that we look at a specific, very small area, and we're saying how much light is there on that specific area. So, and we're measuring it by the amount of energy, so milliwatts, that is related to that area, which if we added the measurement of time into it, so it's going to be like energy, area, and time, we're going to get joules. So sometimes you'll see that as far as the expressed amount of energy, and sometimes we're going to be seeing milliwatts per centimeter squared, because it's classically milliwatts per centimeter squared is used. I'm going to be using those measurements. So 50 is a very low threshold. We normally want it more than 100. And normally panels are going to have about 125 milliwatts per centimeter squared when you're going to be standing 6 inches away from the red light therapy panel. Okay. And as I said, as far as like time span, we're looking at 5 to anywhere to 20 minutes as far as the exposure. A few more things that can be combined and are great with red light therapy. One is methylene blue. Obviously, we had Scott from transcriptions here on our podcast. So if you want to dive deeper into that, you should look for that episode. Methylene blue is basically mitochondrial support, among other things, but it supports mitochondrial function. So combining it together with red light therapy is fantastic. Cold plunges or ice baths or cryotherapy, all of those things are very well combined with red light therapy, because they are stressors that stress the body a little bit differently, and red light therapy also helps the body deal with that type of stress. But actually, if you do those two, not only once, but if you do those together over time, there is evidence that they both of them improve not only the efficiency of mitochondria, but they improve the amount of mitochondria per cell. So it's not like an engine of a car where we have only one mitochondria per cell. We have a lot, and we can improve the amount of mitochondria per cell. Depends on the cell type, but through both of those, and especially in conjunction. So that is something to take in mind. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of a deep dive into red light therapy and a few of its functions. I really hope you enjoyed this deep dive, and I really hope that you will come back to us with questions. So obviously, as I said before, this is a podcast that is brought to you by us, by Young Goose, the biohacking skincare company. And we love when people reach out to us with questions about things that were in the podcast. It's the biggest compliment we can get, frankly. So if you have any questions about how to combine different treatments, different products, different modalities with red light therapy, please reach out to us at service@younggoose.com, or the chat box on our website, or through Instagram, which is young_goose_skincare. And we would love to answer them. A few of our other products, just to close things that can be used very well together with red light therapy, are obviously our Care NAD boosting moisturizer. The reason is because NAD is essential for mitochondrial function among 600 different processes that are associated with the youthful state and function, and that is one of them. So obviously Care, using it every day, either once or twice a day, would improve red light therapy. Eye Care, same thing. Our eye cream, same thing, still has those NAD precursors that elevate NAD levels, etc. Bioretinol, red light therapy is great to promote healing of tissue, and bioretinol promotes cellular rejuvenation, a little bit like working out, by creating micro damage. So together they are amazing. And of course, our hyperbaric mask. The hyperbaric mask, among other things, increases the skin's ability to create ATP. Red light therapy increases the production of ATP. So together they are extremely powerful. And again, hyperbaric mask brings more oxygen to the skin, which with red light therapy then the skin can use. Again, beautiful combination. But yeah, our BioShield SPF 40 is very good to combat pollution. As we said today in the podcast, red light therapy also helps our skin combat pollution through improving skin barrier, through improving intrafacial water structures. So these two also made it amazing together. And all of our products as a whole are designed to have the skin function at its more youthful state. Red light therapy really takes that concept and improves it as a whole. So any one of our product and red light therapy would work great together. And again, that has been a deep dive on red light therapy. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please let us know if it was too much, or if you would like to hear more deep dives about specific biohacks / skin hacks in the future. So thank you very much.